Hello Year 10. Today we are going to be learning about the motor effect. So here's the folder with the work in, here's today's lesson, and I'm just going to go straight onto the PowerPoint. Now, some starter questions to get your memory jogged. Hopefully we all remember them. I'm going to go straight onto the next slide, which is the important bit. So this is Fleming's left-hand rule. You have to remember it because you may be asked to figure out the direction that a wire moves if it is placed in a magnetic field. Now get your left hand, and it has to be a left hand, and point directly at your screen. Have your thumb pointing directly at the ceiling, and your middle finger should point parallel to your screen. So in my case, it'll be pointing to the right. Okay, and every single finger is at a right angle to every other finger. Now, I like to remember this as freeze, FBI, okay, and then you point your gun at someone. So my left hand, like this on the screen here, F is my force, B is my field direction, and I is my current direction, okay, and you need to know this here. If this was, say, a 6-mark question, describe Fleming's left-hand rule, you would need to say, hold each finger at mutual right angles to each other. Your thumb represents the force, that's a mark, and it will point in the direction of the force. Your first finger represents the field direction, that's the second mark, but again, you need to say it points from north to south, so it points in the direction of the arrows. Your middle finger is the current direction, and that points from positive to negative, so that is the direction of conventional current. Now, what's the point of this? Well, Fleming's left-hand rule shows the motor effect. It predicts the direction that the motor effect happens. So let's go into the next slide. Here you've got a magnetic field between a horseshoe magnet, and you've got a magnetic field around a wire. Now, if you have a look, this is what happens when you push them into each other. Okay, this is the motor effect. If I go back one, these were nice uniform straight lines, the same here. And as soon as you try and push them into each other, remember, field lines cannot cross. Because of this, you distort the magnetic field lines, and that creates a force. That is called the motor effect. Okay. Just a quick memory recap. Which way would the current be flowing through this wire, and how would you figure that out? You'll have to go back into your notes to find that one. Now, here is a quick question, and this is going to be really difficult for me to show you because we're not in the classroom, but I'd like you to try and align your fingers in the correct way so that you can try and answer these questions. So, for example, my middle finger has to point from A to B. My first finger has to point from north to south. Okay, and if you wiggle your hands around, you should get that your thumb is pointing down. Okay, so have a little play with that, and you can see, if you want to, you can answer these questions. This should be quite straightforward. The hard part is lining your hands up and trying to predict which way the wire moves. Now, I'm just going to skip past this because that's the answers. This is why it's useful. Well, one of the reasons it's useful. It's called the motor effect because it is mostly used in motors. If you'd like to look at these two videos here, these have got good animations and good explanations of what's going on. Now, when you have a look at those videos, it will show you the forces and it will show you what's going on. I'm going to go on to the next one. Okay. That green arrow that's spinning around shows you the direction of the force. Again, if you just go on this one here, align your fingers up, you should get your index finger pointing from north to south. Okay, your middle finger should be pointing towards you because I can't pause the animation, but the current is flowing out of the screen, so the green arrow points upwards. For now, that's all you need to know. Just make sure you know how to align your fingers up. Okay, make sure you understand which way the force goes, and then later on we will go on to what the motor effect so how to apply this to motors and how this even works. Okay, now I'm going to go off the PowerPoint in a second and show you a question that I'd like you to try. They should be quite easy, because they are just recap stuff. The 1 and 2 are recap questions, okay? It's sort of stuff you've done before, but a bit more difficult. Part 3 is explain how a loudspeaker works. Now, in the folder, there will be a picture of a loudspeaker. I would like you to use your new rule that you figured out to describe how a loudspeaker works. Okay, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go into these. Here are your bronze, silver, gold questions. Here's your thinking skills question, making an electromagnet. If you're really struggling, this is your bronze task, right? You should be able to get this done pretty quickly. If you're a bit more confident, choose one of these ones. Again, we've seen some of these questions before. Most of them are pretty easy. It's just you haven't done stuff in a while, so it will be, you'll have to jog your memory a bit. So this one's application with a graph. If you can't draw the graph, that's fine. Ignore the graph questions. I'd like a few people to try the gold one. Okay, this is something we haven't learned yet, but I'd like you to think about what's going on in this picture. You should be able to answer these. Okay, take it step by step, one at a time. Think about what happens if you put a current through this solenoid. This iron core turns into an electromagnet. Then what happens to the rest of this? Okay, then if you're really confident, here's your extension question, and this is what we will be moving on to later. Remember, we've done a little bit of this before. Once you've made your notes, okay, and you have done a question, submitted that to me, just email me it. That's perfect. Here is the condensed notes if you don't want to look at anything else and you just want to see the rule and the questions. So that is everything.